What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pure EVil MMA Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Evil. So it's kind of been a crazy night so far here at Pure EVil MMA Studios. Currently, it is 3 a.m. here. We got Donny on the line from PureEvilMMA.com, who's done some amazing work so far for us. And man, we had some brutal boxing fights so far tonight. We had Ortiz vs. Wilder 2 go down. We also had UFC 254 go down. We are still looking for Aniah Blanchard as well, which we will give you an update on that story in just a moment. But before we start any of that, make sure you guys subscribe down below here on Periscope, which you are watching live, and also on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, Player FM, and we would to welcome on our new sponsor, Age of Radio, and also Megaphone. So you guys can check us out on there as well with my co-host James Nick Sweeney from Ultimate Fighter Season 10 and UFC veteran who has an upcoming fight, who has also been in Denver helping Alistair Overeem for his upcoming fight, which, let's start right there, right off the bat. We have a break, Donnie. We got a break from UFC. We got about, 2-3 weeks till our next event, with the last event not being so exciting. Now, really quick, before we talk about Deontay Wilder versus Ortiz too, there was a little scuffle going on at Bellator, but even more importantly, Joe Giannetti versus Paddy Pimblett was supposed to be going down, what was it, Friday, or, right? The fight was supposed to be going down Friday, or was it? Yeah, Cage Warriors 111. However, Joe Giannetti took this fight on short notice. I believe it was 9 or 10 days short notice. He was a little bit overweight going into the fight, but you got a guy that's saving your ass going overseas. I mean, he's right here, about 2 hours away from me where I'm in studio right now. I've traveled to a lot of his fights. I've been to at least 4 of Joe's fights. Me and him go back 3, 4, maybe close to 5 years now, before he was on The Ultimate Fighter, and that was one hell of a time to watch somebody that you know skyrocket on a season of one of MMA's most popular shows that helps somebody's career. However, his path wasn't too smooth. I guess those are the right words to say, and me and Joe have kind of talked about that here on the podcast before. So since then, since he hasn't been signed to the UFC, even though he's seen his opponents that he's beaten get signed without following along behind them,
bullshit, man.
He's been trying to get back into the UFC, get that contract with a couple of fights. Very close. I mean, I've been at a lot of those fights. One of them being a draw, one of them where he almost finished his opponent in the last couple of seconds in the fight. However, that didn't go according to plan. And then he gets this fight with Paddy Pimblett. I was like, all right, this is the perfect fight for Joe, because if you remember, Joe wanted to get into UFC Boston, which went down not too long ago. However, that didn't go through. So he gets this fight with Paddy Pimblett. What did you think when this fight was announced, and how did you feel when he didn't make weight, and what were you seeing on social media, because it wasn't a pretty scene?
Oh God, man, obviously I was excited for the matchup. I mean, me and Joe are cool. I mean, I'm a fan of Paddy, but not on a personal level, but me and him got pretty personal on Twitter yesterday, Friday, Thursday after the weigh-ins, going into Friday morning. Me and him were arguing pretty heavily, and
what was being said? Can you just kind of repeat what you guys were saying back and forth to one another, like on a PG level?
Yeah, well, the thing is that, like, somebody would comment to me, and I would just answer their question. And he would jump in and respond to me, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do, man? He missed weight. Don't blame me for this. Don't blame me for the fight not happening. I'm like, dude, you missed weight, too. You missed weight by some
But that's what doesn't make sense. He's saying that he would have taken the fight.
I think what pissed him off the most, and I'm taking this straight from Paddy's standpoint. Okay, this is not my viewpoint at all. His point is this: when he missed weight by 7 pounds, he had to be carried to the scale. When Joe missed weight, Joe had all this energy to scream at him, and Joe didn't get back into the sauna because he had 2 hours after he missed weight. He had 2 hours to get back into the sauna and try to get down. I think he weighed in at like 163, maybe 164. I Joe had body fat on him. He was like, look, dude, I'm not going to die for this fight. Like, I'm not going to kill myself.
Yeah, how are you going to drop 9 pounds in an hour?
Yeah. It's impossible, whatever the fuck it was. But an hour, 2 hours, whatever the time given. Paddy was basically trying to say this is that, was basically, was when he missed weight, he dragged to, like, carried to the and he was on the verge of death. But Joe had all this energy to argue with him at the weigh-ins and didn't get back into the sauna and at least try. I mean, to me, if you're not going to make weight, why are you going to go back in there and tell yourself to try again? I mean, especially when you don't have time. Don't beat a dead horse. I mean, it's not going to happen. But
I feel, here's the thing though, Donnie. I feel like if Paddy was like, I'll take the fight, get in the sauna, lose as much weight as possible, and then we'll go.
I think
Joe would have changed his mind. But Joe said he was having health risks. He said, even though I was yelling, this was a private DM between me and him. He said I was having health risk, which I believe he did make personal as well on social media that he wasn't in the best health.
Right. Yeah. The thing is that he did. I mean, he had a long flight over there to England. Well, obviously, when you fly, you retain water. People, when I brought up that argument, people brought up, well, Darren Till just flew on last minute to New York, but even Darren Till admitted himself that he hadn't been eating or drinking anything, and he had been on a strict diet, and he had a full camp. He had a full camp. Like they basically said this to me. They said, well, Darren Till had a full camp, but he still flew across the Atlantic a day before the weigh-ins. I'm like, you just made my argument for you in your first sentence. He had a full camp. Darren Till admitted that he wasn't sure if he was going to get a visa or not, and he almost broke diet and almost just said fuck it and started drinking. And so he wasn't mad at Kelvin Gastelum for doing the shoulder thing or whatever was going to happen.
Yeah.
He wasn't mad at Kelvin because he knows what it's like to miss weight, first of all. And second of all, Kelvin, in his mind, he thought maybe Kelvin didn't even think the fight was still going to happen. Exactly. So he wasn't mad at Kelvin. But the thing is, I just don't get how somebody like Paddy can sit here and talk all this shit when he's done the same thing himself. Like, he's missed weight himself. I just don't know how you can just... I don't get it.
What did you say? Because I saw this. Paddy was like, is that the only argument you have? And you responded, you were like, I don't need another argument. As many times as people bring this up.
What else do I need? I mean, people are asking me. It's not like I keep responding to him. I'm not like poking. People keep asking me questions, and I keep answering.
With facts.
And he keeps jumping in. He just keeps jumping in. And finally, like, me and him went back and forth for a while.
Here's the thing I like about you, though, Donnie. It's not like you throw a bunch of bullshit. It's you throw facts out there.
I do my best. And most people can vouch for me that if I'm in the wrong, I admit it. And finally, I just got tired of arguing with them. I'm like, look, man.
It's exhausting.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a fan of both of you guys, okay? Joe, on a more personal level, the thing is, I'm just a fan that's disappointed the fight's not happening. No hard feelings. Good luck in your next fight. I just had to finally just end it with him. And he was like, well, I'm sorry for the insults and everything. And he apologized, too. Everything was good. But yeah, it was just disappointing. It's just disappointing.
Here's the other thing, though, Donnie. It's like, I was seeing a lot of tweets of guys being like, oh, Joe just wanted to take a free vacation. Excuse me.
Yeah, come on,
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Joe wants to take a free vacation. No, this is a kid that is so hungry to get back inside the octagon. He had a taste of it. He was so close. He made it to the finale. He made it to the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. He had the quickest submission. He even told us here on this program at Pure EVil MMA.com that Dana White didn't even give him his bonus for his finish on The Ultimate Fighter, which is so upsetting. So you think Joe...
he doesn't want to press the issue because he doesn't want to fucking risk getting in the UFC in the future.
You guys really think that Joe is going to take a free vacation, doesn't care about this fight? This is a high-profile fight. This isn't a fight that's going to be blown under the radar. This isn't a local fight that, Joe's trying to get back, and he's 2-1 with one draw as well, and he's just trying to get... No, he took this fight because this was the big picture of, okay, if I go in there and I dominate Paddy, who everybody knows in his backyard, this could be my ticket into the octagon. This could be where Dana White sure as hell is going to watch or hear about this main event or watch the replay on Instagram and sign me. You think he was going to take this fight like a vacation? You're out of your damn mind.
Exactly, man. Let's be honest. I hate to say this, but this doesn't look good for Joe. It really doesn't. But the thing is that Dana White and the UFC can talk all the shit they want. The thing is that they have cut fighters. Leslie Smith, let's just say, let's not bring up the real reasons why Leslie Smith was cut, but Leslie Smith didn't take a fight against Aspen Ladd because Aspen Ladd missed weight by a bunch of weight.
Oh, and then she got cut afterwards.
And then she gets cut for not taking a fight. So it's pretty much like the same exact situation where Joe missed weight and Paddy didn't take the fight, but it's still going to look bad for Joe, I guarantee it.
So
why
here's...
would he purposely do this shit? Why would he purposely do this? I mean, the guy wants back in the UFC more than anything. Yeah. Anything. He's working on rounding out his game every single day. This doesn't look good for him. And, I mean, he's not going to do this shit. He's just not going to do it.
That's what pissed me off, Donny.
He didn't do a free fucking vacation. I mean, I can guarantee you that. I talk to him all the time. I mean, there's nothing that he wants more but to get back in the UFC and get a second chance. And this was the biggest fight he can get. Let's be honest. Cage Warriors is pretty much like the minor league system, the farm league, to get into the UFC. I mean, well, at least one of them. Cage Warriors does a good job at building young talent. They really do, and pushing guys into the UFC. And this would have been this to me, I was looking at this almost as if it was a UFC fight, an undercard fight or opening the main card type fight. And, yeah, I mean, this was a huge opportunity for Paddy as well, but I don't think Paddy wanted to take the risk. I'm just being honest. I really don't.
That's okay. Let's spend about 2 more minutes on this subject before we move forward. That's what pissed me off, is that when we heard on the broadcast that Paddy would have taken this fight, why didn't they make it happen then? That's what I don't understand.
That's not right. That's not. And the thing is, it's almost like, Paddy's going to be in Cage Warriors. Unless he gets the call to the UFC, he's going to be in Cage Warriors for his next fight.
And stop, Donny, stop, Donny, stop. Because that's the funny thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Because Paddy has had his chance to get signed to the UFC. We saw on Ariel's show. And I don't know if you remember this, but it was about 1.5 years ago. He went on the MMA Hour. And we all were sitting there anxious, thinking that Paddy was about to announce that he was signed to the UFC. But he wasn't. He stayed.
Yeah, he said his goal was to get that second belt, the lightweight belt, before he moved on to the UFC. And he even talked about it leading up to this fight that if he got the third chance, that he would probably take it with the UFC right now. After this fight, if he got the third opportunity, he would take it. That he doesn't regret not taking it even before he lost the sore on Box, because he probably wasn't ready at the time, that he was hanging out in clubs and wasn't doing all the right things, and now he is, and that he's more mature and at a better place in his life to take the UFC opportunity. And so, but it just seemed to me like what you were talking about as far as the argument on the broadcast, or bringing up that Paddy was going to take the fight on the broadcast. To me, that's like casting stones at Joe without giving him the opportunity to rebuttal.
Yes.
Because there was obviously personal things between Paddy and Joe that they know, and that it was almost like throwing stones at Joe without giving him a chance to respond to it. Like casting Paddy in this positive light, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily. I don't want to throw stones at him more, because it really wasn't his fault. Joe did miss weight. At the same time, he's had an opponent that he's done the same thing to, and his opponent still took the fight. And I guarantee if Paddy needed a paycheck, he would have taken the fight still.
Yeah.
He had a paycheck, but we won't argue about that. All I'm just saying is that to me, it wasn't right to what they did, bringing it up in the broadcast, because if he was going to take the fight, he would have taken it.
Here's the last thing I want to mention about this whole situation, though, is that I do want to see this fight go down. I do want to see this, and I don't know where it was left off. Where was this situation left off? Do you have an update on that?
No. I started after Virginia on a plane flying back. So I to be honest with you, it looks like Joe is going to be another blown, in a lot of people's minds, it's going to be another blown opportunity for Joe. I've seen people say every time Joe gets the big fight, he blows it. And I don't think that's true, but I think those fights in the house were pretty big. I mean, a lot of people were watching him, and he finished every single opponent in that house. And so I think those are some big opportunities that put his name on the map in the first place, which, I mean, obviously I knew about it before the Ultimate Fighter, but it put his name on the map, and those were some big fights. So people can say whatever they want. I really don't know where to go from here. I know he had a fight coming up in January. He was looking at a fight in Cage Titans in January, so we'll see if that happens. As far as this fight ever going down, I don't know.
I'll tell you this, it at the end of the day, it doesn't look good for Joe. It's almost like he did lose this fight.
No, it doesn't.
But the sad thing is that he was taking a risk, a huge risk. Coming in.
So too. Definitely 9 days notice going to someone over the backyard, pretty much, yeah.
It's a sad story, and it's something that I wish Joe thought a little bit more about. I know that he was excited when this was probably, dropped on his lap. But when you think about it, if he didn't think he was going to be able to make weight and thought the situation was going to blow over, and they thought, he was going to be able to accept that he was a couple of pounds overweight, I don't know, man. It just doesn't look good, and it doesn't look like he would be ready for a UFC spot. Because think about it this way. If Paddy was in the UFC, right? Say, for instance, Paddy's in the UFC, and Joe got this shot to be like, all right, Joe, you want your shot? All right, well, we want you to fight Paddy this weekend. Fly over. It's in Paddy's backyard. Are you ready? And Joe agrees to it. And he shows up to the UFC weigh-ins, and he's that much overweight. He's not going to get invited back to the UFC. Dana White doesn't stand for that. And that's what is upsetting about this.
Unfortunately, they have a history of this at camp. I mean, but the thing is, I've talked to Joe, obviously, and the thing is that this fight, to me, I'm just going to be honest with you, he kind of knew that the UFC was on this long break, right? And even to make your point, he even talked about when UFC Boston was happening, he kept posting, talking about keeping my weight low, just in case an opportunity comes up to hop on that card. Yeah. Joe Lozon has come out and talked bad about, and Joe Lozon doesn't talk bad about anyone, but Joe Lozon had come out and talked bad about JoJo.
Did he? Whoa, did he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
What did he say? What did he say? Because I wasn't even aware of that.
Because in JoJo's last fight that you were talking about over in Cage Titans, it's not his fault the referee stopped it, but in a lot of people's minds,
the tap fight.
JoJo was
where he wasn't.
I think how the ending happened. JoJo, like Paddy said that Joe was down 2 rounds. Maybe that was the case, and that how the fight ended. But it's not Joe's fault. The referee stopped the fight. But the point is that, I guess, so Joe brought that up, and then said that he talked to that referee because that referee is someone that he knows locally. And he just basically was trying to say that Joe's not a good guy. JoJo, is not a good guy, and things like that. Joe Lozon doesn't really talk bad about anyone. But at the same time, Joe Giannetti has had beef with guys that Lozon trained, and I think it's more of a camp rivalry than it is what people are making it out to be.
It's weird because I had his opponent from that fight, Conor Barry, on the show.
If you look on Paddy's Twitter, he reposted it, or if you look at Joe's, because apparently Joe Lozon and JoJo were arguing, and so Lozon told JoJo to call him, and I guess Joe Giannetti did call Lozon, and I guess they had a conversation. I didn't even.
Donny.
I don't want to get corrupted against either guy, so I didn't even go at it. I just feel like this is more of a regional, both up there from the same area, promotion.
Let me show our listeners really quick this highlight of the fight you're talking about, where Joe is talking about Joe's fight against Conor Barry. Let me just show everybody this really quick. I got it.
You need the context, yeah.
All right, so.
Which to me, it was like, why is JoJo even why is Lozon even talking about this? I don't really get it, but like, it's not JoJo's fault. The referee stopped the fight.
All right, so there it is, guys. Let me play it one more time for everybody. Here, Donnie, one more second.
No problem. You do.
All right, here we go. So Joe's hammer and fisting, and then he starts pounding the drums, and then the ref calls it. But Conor was pretty tied up there. But I had Conor on after that fight, and he said, it wasn't really causing any damage. Like, I was, trying to make the moves to escape, and, the ref stepped in.
That, but it's not Giannetti's fault the fight. The referee stopped it. I mean, you blame the referee, but I mean, what is JoJo supposed to do about that?
Yeah. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. But that was also the knock on Joe in his last couple fights. I was there for a couple of Joe's fights, and there was a moment, and I think not the fight before that, but the fight that went to a draw, where he had a moment to finish the fight, and people were saying that he wasn't striking hard enough. I would love to see the people that are talking ish to step in there against these opponents. Yeah. It's not like Joe's fighting cans. Conor Barry is a tough opponent. The guy he went to a draw with, very tough opponent. The guy he recently lost to, tough opponent. Calling out Paddy Pimblett, very tough opponent. He's not calling out guys to get wins. He's calling out guys to challenge himself.
Yeah. Look at Tapology for these guys that are coming in through the UFC. Some from Brazil. I mean, I'm not trying to knock anyone, but I'm not any nationality. I'm not trying any of that. But just look at some of the guys they fought. They haven't even beaten a guy with a winning record. I mean, it is what it is. The JoJo is fighting stiff competition. I mean,
and he said it a million times on the show. I think he's been on Pure EVil MMA 5-6 times, not including us being with him, where he's done interviews. He's always looking for a challenge. Always looking for a challenge. He's not looking for easy fights, and I don't mean anything against Nick Newell. Nick Newell, he lives 10 minutes away, or his gym's 10 minutes away from here, where we're recording the show right now. But if you look at his, last couple of opponents, maybe not the last one, but, ones before that, and even those opponents have been on the show, and I have nothing but respect for them. But their records don't show anything UFC caliber, and that's the big knock on East Coast fighters.
He's being given opponents that, like for example, Dylan Dennis, a submission artist. So who are they giving him? They're building Dylan Dennis up the right way, in my opinion. Knock him if you want, because all he does is call out guys that are not in Bellator. But they're giving him guys that are prone to submission, and he is a submission threat. And the same thing with Newell. I like Nick Newell a lot, but he has fought Justin Gaethje.
I was going to throw that in there. I was going to throw that.
Tough that fight back in the day. But we won't even go into who Justin's management is and how that management had a big connection with the World Series of Fighting. But anyway, Giannetti is really trying to if anything, him going to London on 9 days notice, people can say everything they want. It was a free vacation, all this bullshit. But he is seeking out the toughest challenges he can, and people can talk shit all they want. I mean, he tries to stay calm in the octagon, and if they want to, if him staying calm and staying calm in a situation of chaos, if they want to interpret that as not caring or not giving his all, then I would love to see them step in there with someone who's trying to take their fucking head off.
So, Donnie, let's switch gears here. And, guys, let us know what you think about this on Instagram at Pure EVil MMA_. Also on Twitter at Pure EVil MMA_. And you can always check us out at www.pureevilmma.com to engage with us. Let's switch gears here a little bit. Big news tonight. Deontay Wilder versus Ortiz 2 went down. Now, Donnie, what was your prediction for this fight? Because I knew you called it. I know that you called this one.
I got lucky and said Wilder, 7th round knockout.
Now, did you watch the first fight? Because, going into that first fight, Ortiz, I feel really, and a lot of people agree, underestimated. I mean, Wilder really underestimated Ortiz's power there and what he was capable of, because he's really not well known. He looks like somebody like Daniel Cormier, who doesn't really belong in that division. He's a little overweight. But yet, when you see his skills, you're like, damn. Wow. Okay.
Well,
now this is a wake-up call. Let's get that rematch in there. Yeah,
he's a great boxer, and he's southpaw, so he presents a new challenge.
It reminded me of Stipe versus DC. That's what it kind of reminded me. The first fight was like Stipe really underestimated DC going into that fight. Didn't give him enough credit. Didn't think he was going to be able to knock him out. And then he was like, damn, okay, DC. And then went into that second fight, and it was like, all right, now I'm ready. That's what we saw here tonight, correct?
I mean, I guess you could say that. I mean, I still think that Ortiz is a much better boxer. I don't really see how anybody can dispute that. But
yeah, he won every round, correct? Did you give Ortiz?
I kind of like bring this up earlier. It's almost like it's like a gunfight. And Wilder is not the best shot in the world, but he's coming to the gunfight with a bazooka.
Yeah,
you know, like he has that the equalizer. You know, I mean, he was getting outboxed. But if you look at it in hindsight, I think Ortiz was creating a lot of opportunities or being given a lot of opportunities.
How did you have him up? How many rounds did you have Ortiz up?
I wanted a clean sweep, to be honest with you. I mean, a lot of people will disagree with that. I think the official, like Larry Hadler, fucking this ringside score, at one point he had Wilder up 3-2 somehow. I think he even gave Wilder around that round that Wilder didn't land a punch in. The official...
Whoa. Back up. Repeat that one more time.
Hazard.
He gave him a round that he did.
He's like the Harold Letterman. You know, Harold Letterman does the HBO boxing or whatever. He's like the Letterman of whatever the fuck PBC or what DAZN, whatever the hell it was on.
He's the bird of boxing. Yeah.
Yeah, he had Wilder up 3-2 at one point. I had it a clean sweep 5-0 at that point. I'm pretty sure he gave Wilder, one of the rounds he gave Wilder, I didn't see Wilder land anything other than maybe a few jabs. But he's clearly got traffic several times, and Wilder even rocked him with the big left hand. Oh, excuse me, Ortiz even rocked Wilder with the big left hand in that round. But somehow he had it 3-2. I mean, I'm a boxing casual. I only watch the big fights because boxing just frustrates the hell out of me, and scorecards like this is, I mean, the thing is that people might say, well, it ended in knockout. What do you care what the scorecards say and this and that? Well, yeah, it kind of shows, like, I mean, he did win by knockout. It was a definitive win, but at the same time, it just kind of shows, like, how corrupt boxing is. But the judges did have it 4-2 for Ortiz. But I saw some crazy scorecards, and I was anticipating seeing something crazy if Ortiz could last the distance, because we know how big of an economic impact Fury Wilder 2 can have on, you know, in Vegas or wherever they're going to have it. I would imagine Vegas, but I think the first one was in California. But
can we talk about that? I feel like that's a big reason why I don't watch boxing much anymore. Why my father, who was a huge boxing fan, which is a big reason why I got into mixed martial arts, was because of my father introducing me to boxing. I remember sitting there watching, you know, the big Tyson versus Holyfield fight. I remember watching a lot of Tyson pay-per-views. I remember watching a lot of boxing pay-per-views, and it's really fallen off for a long time, and now it's picking steam back up. But the big knock on it is, you know, the judging, and a lot of people feeling like it's corrupt.
Terrible, man. I mean, look at Triple G versus Canelo. Look at the first fight. That was a draw, right? Triple G. It was a draw, but Triple G clearly won the fight. And the reason why it was a draw was because Adelaide Bird scored it. 10 rounds. Adelaide Bird, she scored it 10-2 for Canelo. I mean, that was insane. Like, I don't know. It's just crazy, man. I mean, there's been other fights like the same as you growing up with your father watching. I grew up because one of my heroes who passed away this past year, unfortunately, was Sweet Pea Whitaker, because he's from the same hometown as me. And I grew up watching him versus Oscar De La Hoya and fights like that, and grew up watching Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, other guys boxing, not them two in particular, obviously, but I just grew up on guys like that, and to me, just, I don't know, it's just, I mean, it was obviously terrible decision back then, too. It's not just now, but fights like Triple G, Canelo, obviously Triple G is getting up there in age, Canelo, into many people's eyes before this heavyweight, resurgence of Fury and Wilder and all these guys. And before this resurgence, we had Triple G, Canelo, and in many people's minds, Canelo was the number one, draw in boxing. And I pretty much saw it coming before the fight. I mean, Triple G was the one pushing the pace, walking him down, and I mean, it was a clear win that first fight for Triple G. And you have judging like that. I mean, 10 rounds to 2. I mean, even Canelo came out and said that Adelaide's scorecard was kind of crazy. Like, he didn't win the fight by that much. Obviously, he's not going to admit that he didn't win. But he was saying that was, like...
Go back,
like,
watch Season 10 of The Ultimate Fighter, Roy Nelson versus Justin Wren. And you have Adelaide Bird there, ringside. And you have Dana White there saying, this is a robbery. You have Rashad going, this is a robbery. You have my co-host ringside there going, this is a robbery. Everyone, Rampage, this is a robbery. Brendan Schaub, this is a robbery. That ruined Justin Wren's career.
Somehow Adelaide, somehow, because I know her husband is I think his name is Robert.
He's also in the scene, correct.
He was the one that was, he was the referee for Mayweather Conor. And,
can we talk about that? Let's go back to what the boxing judges scored that fight. They didn't give a single round to Conor. Now, I know we're going to get slack for that.
If they did, I don't remember that they did, but...
No, it was not a single judge. Not a single judge.
No, you're probably right. I just know that... I mean, a lot of people are obviously going to say nowadays... I mean, and in hindsight, maybe it was the case, but a lot of people were saying that Mayweather carried Conor and was trying to make it competitive and things like that. But that may be the case. Let's say that's the case. Okay, yeah. Mayweather has seen Conor fade in fights in the UFC, in MMA, and watched him fade in fights, and he was just allowing Conor to work, to get tired. That may be the case, but I still thought Conor at least won the first 3 rounds, maybe 4.
I agree.
And like you said, he wasn't given any rounds. So obviously, if it would have went to the scorecards, I mean, we can say Mayweather would have won the 10th pretty big, and would have won the 11th, would have won the 12th. And who cares? Because he really won the boxing match. He won the boxing match in the whole.
It doesn't matter. It was exciting to watch. Either way.
Yeah. But the thing is that it was still a corrupt scorecard. I don't care what anyone says. It was
the point of this whole conversation. That's why a lot of people.
I was trying to tie a bow around it, because I know people listening right now are going to be thinking, well, Mayweather carried him, or Mayweather was doing this on purpose, and things like that.
And they're going to say, you don't know anything about fighting.
We understand. Yeah, we understand that. We understand that. We're just talking about the specific scorecard, just in case. Like, boxing couldn't allow Conor to come in and do well.
Yeah.
Like, just the corruption in boxing. That's what really bothers me.
And it's very well known. It's not just me and you saying it. It's very well known.
It's not the secret. It might be slipping under the rug, but yeah. I mean, I thought we saw kind of a bad decision tonight. I mean, actually, it was a close fight, but we won't even go into that fight. It was an undercard fight, but.
And you know what the thing is? We saw this a lot, and I'm going to be discussing this on a lot of the upcoming podcasts, especially with James McSweeney. We're going to be doing something new here, Donnie, and this is a big announcement for our website. We're going to be getting into MMA or combat sports conspiracy theories, because there's a lot of people out there that are requesting that are interested about it, because judges are getting paid off.
I heard. Oh, gotcha.
GSP, the whole oiled up situation. The sponsorship bans.
Same thing about Claudia Gadelha.
Setting fighters up to lose. There's cover-ups. People are saying that Silva took a dive against Weidman in that first fight, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, God, come on.
You have the whole Seth Petrozelli versus Kimbo.
Silva did come out and say it was kind of a weight off his shoulders losing that. We're not going to that far. That's fucking insane.
You want to hear a crazy one, Donnie? People believe Benson Henderson and Showtime Pettis planned the famous Showtime kick with a signal.
Oh, God.
With a signal. Now, after this podcast, I think it would be appropriate for me and you to talk about this tomorrow and do a segment on this. Me and you can do like a 10-minute breakdown of this, because people claim that there was a signal that Showtime gave Benson to cue up the Showtime kick.
I mean, there was a pause in between. There was a little pause there. I can look at it vividly in my mind, and I can remember there was kind of a pause in action, and then he runs and does it. But I mean, they're going to say that Astring allowed the knee from that as well too.
Well, here's the other thing. It gets even deeper, because now people also believe that TJ Grant faked his concussion, so Showtime versus Benson Henderson 2 could go down at UFC 164.
I've always wondered. I know that TJ Grant, obviously the concussion, and he was on a big win streak too. But yeah, I mean, didn't he knock out? He knocked out Gray Maynard in his last fight, and that was his last fight, right?
We can talk about it during that segment. You want to hear another one that could be interesting to talk about?
Think about it.
People think this is a really crazy one. This is a really crazy MMA conspiracy. They believe that Yoel Romero has a twin brother who shows up for the weigh-ins, but then the other twin brother shows up to fight. How crazy is that? How good is that one?
It's kind of funny that you brought up Yoel. Oh my God!
They think that Yoel has a twin brother. The twin brother shows up to the weigh-ins, cuts all the weight, and then Yoel is the one that actually goes in there and fights.
Oh my God, dude! I don't even think I can. I can't even come up with this shit. Like I couldn't even think of it if I could. Like the only thing I could think about as far as Yoel and conspiracies is the same thing with Louise Ortiz tonight.
The Watergate.
They're both from Cuba. No, they're both. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, we don't know what their age is.
No one knows what their ages is. No one knows like what their real ages are, like because they're from Cuba, and everyone believes that they're much older than they let on to be. But
here's another good one, Donnie. Here's another good one. They believe that BJ Penn has dirt on Dana White or somebody in the high up of the UFC, and that's why they've kept him on for so long on the roster, up until recently where they let him go.
That. I honestly, I wouldn't discount that one. I mean, I do know that, if, in the words of Dana, if you let him go, then he wouldn't be able to have control, like BJ would be able to go to another promotion where he can get killed and things like this, like by much more superior opponents, and this way you can control who he fights. But yeah, that one right there doesn't seem so far-fetched to me.
You want to hear another good one?
Talking about, yeah, please keep them coming. I'm enjoying the laugh.
People believe that Rumble threw the DC rematch, and that's why his corner bailed and he retired after the fight.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think he's going to...
That's another interesting one to look into. Also, Cody Nolov left Ohio because issues with Stipe, and his girl was asked at UFC 203 presser, and we can go back and look at that as well. These are all interesting takes.
I'll tell you one that I do believe. I mean, it's not really like a real big juicy one or anything, but you did bring up like fighters throwing fights to a certain extent, things like that. I do believe. And the thing, it's crazy because I can't even think of the damn. What the hell? Celine,
you're thinking about
Hardy, Greg Hardy when he fought that Russian. He barely even touched her. He didn't even touch the Russian. Them two trained together down in the American Top Team, and the Russian felt really good about how sparring sessions went against Greg Hardy, and he was actually friends with Greg Hardy. Like them two, according to him, they became friends.
You're talking about the opera guy, right? The big opera guy, correct? His last fight before the Juan fight, correct?
Well, yeah, exactly. The one right after the Alan Krause fight, where only besides Juan, the only fight that he let's just be honest. Greg Hardy, he did well in his last fight against Volkov, but he really hasn't. Besides the illegal knee on Crowder, he really hasn't landed a really solid shot against anyone. But anyways, that Russian guy that he fought, they both trained down in the American Top Team together. I swear, look, like if you watch that again, it looks like he's doing. Like, I mean, a lot of people say that he was just scared and this and that, but he's been in the he's taken shots from Hardy. I know sparring isn't the same. I'm not going to act like it is, but that looked crazy to me. Like he just went down, and Greg Hardy hammer fisted him to the body with a couple shots, and the referee stopped it. And even Dana White talks shit about the Russian in his post-fight press conference.
Yeah.
He's like, what 9 guys did that guy beat? He was like 9-1 or something. He was like 9-0 or 9-1 or some shit. He's like, what 9 guys did that guy beat? But that shit looks good to me. I'm not even gonna lie.
But you know what? There was a lot of people, and I forget if it was Stitch Duran or was it Vanderlei? Maybe it was Vanderlei. I think it was Vanderlei that said he had proof that the UFC set fights up. Or something like that,
yeah.
And then he revoked the statement.
Yeah, Stitch Duran got in trouble because he said something bad about the Reebok deal because Stitch Duran was coming in. Stitch Duran was coming in with all those
Johnny,
these,
me and Stitch Duran were never friends. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Kimbo Slice versus Petrozelli.
He had all those sponsors, and he brought up something about Reebok, and Stitch Duran came out and said that him and Dana White were friends in the past, and that it fucked up their friendship, him kicking him out of the UFC.
But that's what pisses me off, though, Donnie, is, you can call it a conspiracy or you can just call it greed. When they signed that Reebok deal, they knew exactly what they were doing to the fighters that are in there. Because,
I agree, man.
You know what? You look at what Dana White was saying, going, oh, yeah, look at the sponsors that they're having, Condom Depot, and all the sponsors that they had that were paying pretty good money. But yet, you look at what he was saying, going, we wanted everyone to look professional. Look at the Octagon. The Octagon, and I believe it was MMA On Point that brought this up, which was hysterical. They said the Octagon looks like a NASCAR, which is so true.
Exactly.
And you can't have a knockout. You can't have a submission. You literally have to sit there before the BMF title goes down for Bruce Buffer to go, this fight is brought to you by Red Roof Inn. We'll keep the light on for you.
Before that even happened, you have fucking one of the commentators saying, let's watch the fighter step into the prep zone, and they'll call it the auto zone prep zone, or whatever the fuck company, Let's watch, as we see this fighter step into the, before they even get the Octagon fucking sponsors is being called
Donnie,
out.
where's that money going to? Where is that money going to? Not the fighters.
Of course, right in their pockets. Not in the fighters' pockets. I mean, they're making a small, minute percentage of it, but not very much.
That's what's the most upsetting.
They call it the incentive pay. Like, if you have 20 or more fights, you get like $15,000. If you're in a title fight, you get $30,000. If you're the champion, you get $40,000. If you're an entering fighter with 5 or less fights, you get $2,500 or some bullshit. But I mean, I was in fighters that were making over $100K for having shit on their shoulders.
The whole Brandon Schaub thing. The whole Brandon Schaub thing.
There you go. That's right there. Yeah. I know I'm a gamer basketball players, and some people may discount what Brandon Schaub says, and some of the city says I do discount, but I don't see why he would lie about that.
Joe Rogan brought the proof
I'm just saying it definitely costs fighters money, and the thing is, how can you call a fighter an independent contractor if they got to wear a uniform?
They were getting more than $2,500 that Reebok is paying. I'm gonna tell you that.
But just think about it. Just like Eddie Bravo would say. Just think about it. How can you call
no,
a
look
fighter
into it.
Do
your research. Look into it.
Yeah. Just look into it. How can you call a fighter an independent contractor if they have to wear a uniform?
And that's the other sad thing about it all is, you look at some of these legends out there, like Liddell, like Tito Ortiz, the list goes on and on. There's no union. We've had so many unions trying to get started. There's no union. These guys have nowhere to go afterwards. Me and you were kind of talking about it. I won't say the fighter's name, but, there's a lot of fighters, they go through a loss and they don't know about their future. They get confused, but they have nothing else besides fighting. And they're not even making much from fighting. Me and James were talking about it 2 nights ago. Ben Askren, when he was fighting for ONE FC, he was making $50,000 a fight. He was only fighting 1 time a year. You know what nurses are making? They're making over $100K. in a single year.
I mean, if you look at the fighters like this
you're
other
working
fighter,
minimum
like
wage. You're working minimum wage.
Or less. I mean, if you break down the time it takes to train and everything else,
sacrifices from your family, traveling.
I can't remember his name. He's
paying
in
the
PFL
gym,
right now.
paying your dietitian, all of it.
Yep. They got to pay medicals. They got to pay you probably 20% to a manager.
So Donnie,
medicals.
Donnie, when these fighters get brought a deal saying we're going to give you $1,000 to throw this fight, it doesn't surprise me some of them might do it.
No. I mean, just think about this. One of the most important people outside of the fight, the person who in a lot of ways can determine a winner or loss, the referee in the center. I mean, after they make $1,500 a night, or for refereeing a fight card. I'm sure Herb Dean has other things outside of fighting, and he has suites and shit like this. And same thing with John McCarthy. They're big names, but some of these regular guys, I'm
sure they've had offers. I'm sure they've had plenty of offers.
I'm not, obviously, I don't want to jump down that hole. All I'm saying, and try to make any accusations. All I'm saying is that a shot lands, guy goes down, he's getting ready to get up. The referee has the power to stop it even prematurely. All I'm saying is that
it can go both ways too.
The pay. I mean, or both ways exactly. But I'm just saying the pay. There's the economy outside of
it doesn't
fighting.
weigh. It doesn't weigh correct.
With sports betting and all kinds of other things the mafia used to be in pretty much everything.
In boxing, especially.
There's a huge black market economy for things to go on outside of.
Oh my God! Let me grab the photo.
A lot of money. What's that?
Let me grab this photo really quick. All right, so I'm showing everybody. If you're listening on the audio version, you can't see the photo I'm putting in frame, but I'm showing everybody the Ali versus Sonny Liston fight. There's a conspiracy behind this fight as well. They say that Sonny was bribed by the mafia to throw the fight. Because if you look at it...
Everyone's seen Daredevil, right? How did Daredevil's dad die? How did Ben Affleck's dad die in Hell's Kitchen?
There's just so many crazy conspiracy theories.
He went in and won the fight when he wasn't supposed to.
There's so many crazy conspiracy theories that I really want to look into, and I think that would be a good series for me and you, or maybe some of our other staff, to all look into and do a series. So, guys, if you're listening to this or watching this right now, give us some hearts, give us comments down below in the section here. Let us know if you're interested in what conspiracy theory you want us to talk about first, because me and Donnie are going to be talking about this tomorrow. Donnie, I thought that was a great thing to talk about. Just because, just looking at what these fighters are paid, and it just doesn't surprise me.
It's not good. Especially, and I think another thing to bring up is the show and the win, like the show bonus, like we're seeing getting paid the show and then getting the win bonus. I mean, I think that's an outdated system. I obviously I know why it was brought into effect, but just look at a fight, for example, like Brandon Moreno.
Look at tonight, Donnie. Look at tonight. You were saying that you had Ortiz up a few rounds. The judges had Wilder up because if it went to a decision, it would be a moneymaker rematch.
Yeah. I mean, the judges actually did have Ortiz up 4 rounds to 2, but there was a lot of ringside observers and a lot of official.
Is that official? Is that official? That's what the judges had. They had Ortiz up?
Yeah, it's official. It's official that they did have Ortiz up 4 rounds to 2.
I like that.
Cool. And to me, that's kind of a stretch too. I mean, but the thing, all I'm saying is that just look at other fights, for example. Like look in the UFC, Brandon Moreno down in Mexico. Okay.
Oh, against Little Showtime?
No, Brandon Moreno. He fought that. That's not when he fought Sergio. When he fought Sergio Pettis down there too. But he fought just recently on that Jeremy Stevens undercard. Jeremy Stevens versus
Yair.
Man, I cannot think. Yair. Well, anyways, the Brandon Moreno fought undefeated Russian down there, and I thought Brandon Moreno won. A lot of people thought Brandon Moreno won, but it was called a draw. The UFC saved them. Yeah, it was called a draw. But a lot of money was saved by the UFC because they didn't have to pay a win bonus to either. And I actually reached out to a fighter and talked to a fighter, and I will not say who it is, But the thing is, I talked to this player, and I said, through UFC kick out bonus or something like when it's a great fight like that, because it was a very entertaining fight, and obviously the win bonus, it's obviously in there, it's in place to make guys go out there and just really go for it and have exciting fights and things like that. But the thing is that I'm like, in a situation of a draw, does the UFC kick out or anything? Like, do you get some money from this? Because obviously the UFC is saving money because they don't have to pay a win bonus to either. And he said, no. You win, a draw is a draw, a loss is a loss, a win is a win. You get the win bonus only if you win. So in that fight, for example, I'm not saying that the UFC had any incentive. All I'm saying is that the UFC saved money not having to pay either guy a win bonus. I mean, so the thing is that let's half their pay. Then you take put all these different fees into it. The taxes, they have to pay United States taxes, Mexican taxes down in Mexico. They got to pay taxes where they live. They got to pay their management. They got to pay medicals. I mean, all these fees they have to pay. And then let's just say, for example, like Wonder Boy. I'm sure he makes good money. But what about another fighter who's coming up and they break both their hands and they can't fight for the rest of the year? They can only fight that one time. You're looking at a fighter, so a lot of people say, wow, that fighter just paid $20,000 for an easy 15 minutes of work. But they don't look at all the work leading up to it.
Or who they have to pay.
And how they can't fight afterwards. And that was the reason, like, I was so pissed off at I'm not even going to remember his name, but a certain individual who allowed his fighter to take a horrendous beating. And I just found out a couple weeks ago that this said fighter got released by the UFC. So he took a life-changing beating in there, and then, I mean, ended up getting brutally knocked out in like the last 10 seconds. Took a life-changing beating, and to me, it would not be safe for him to fight for at least another year. And he got cut from the promotion anyway. And he made $12,500. $12,500. And he should not, to me, in my opinion, he should not be fighting for another year.
The saddest part, too, is when these guys get released, a lot of fighters will tell you it's harder to get back into the UFC than it is to get to the UFC.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, just like a lot of people would say, making it is one thing, but staying is another. Or, well, like you said, getting back in, I mean, you have to recapture their imagination, recapture. I mean, they already have this conceived, like idea about you, or this preconceived, you understand like how you are to work with, or how you are to deal with, and or what you've done when you made it to the big show, and then now you say you go back down and you start wrecking fools again. They have a preconceived notion that, okay, you can win at that level, but should I give you another chance at this level? I mean,
look at Colby Covington.
It's just tough.
Look at Colby Covington. Look at Colby Covington. He was in a very tough
spot.
spot.
He talked about that.
Until he started, putting up theatrics and putting on the MAGA hat.
I think he said, win or lose against Damian Maia, they were not going to extend his contract, and he was going to be cut, win or lose. And then obviously, I mean, we saw a couple of
We also saw him, throw Dana White.
We saw a couple. Yeah, we saw a couple controversial things, but
we've seen him throw Dana White under the bus, popping in on a live stream with Dana White with some young girl at the poker table. But
Dana White just came out and said something at a press conference about him. Oh, is that what Colby said? I think he has a big fucking. I think that kid has a big fucking mouth or something. That Dana recently said at a press conference because someone said. I think it was after UFC 244. I mean, don't quote me, but it was after the event. It might have been UFC 244. And Dana White was asked a question because he said that Colby said something, and he said, "Oh, what he said? Yeah, that kid has a big fucking mouth or something." And it wasn't after UFC 244. It was after a different event because Colby actually wanted to go and sit with the Trumps at UFC 244, and the Trumps didn't want him to. The Trumps, Donald Trump reserved the seats for people within his staff and for his sons, and so Colby didn't get a seat. But it was after an event where not long ago, where someone brought up Colby's name and they said that kid has a big fucking mouth or something.
That is fucking hilarious.
But the thing is, like you said, that Damian Maia fight, he specifically said that he was going to get cut no matter the outcome. And then, I mean, we did see small controversial things come from his mouth, but nothing like after he beat Damian Maia, what he said down in Brazil. And now to me, I mean, he could be trapped in his own character for all I know. I mean, I don't know.
Well, you know what?
I don't even want to get on him.
It's what a lot of fighters have to resort to, is what Colby Covington. And I've interviewed Colby about 3 years ago, and he wasn't even when I interviewed him, his biggest thing, well, he was calling for the fight with RDA at the time, which took about another year and a half to unravel, but he wasn't even in the latest UFC game. So he started this whole act that he does. You know, he's not like that in real life. He plays this act, and I asked him about it. And
well, there's another conspiracy for you right there. What is this Colby? Because I swear to you, I keep hearing this a lot, and there was probably, I don't know, man, there might have been a thread with like 200 or 300 people commenting on it. Someone said that they still believe that this is an act between Colby and Masvidal. I mean, I don't personally think so, because once Dustin got involved, I see Dustin as somebody that's pretty, that's, you know what I'm saying, like a real person, like real, like very,
100%.
You know what I'm saying, like exactly. So, but the thing, I mean, there's another conspiracy for you, like, is George Masvidal and Colby, since they were friends for so long before this, they were roommates. I mean, we've seen the videos of them wrestling in their apartment. Are they creating manufacturers?
I would love to see the old videos of them with John Jones. You know what I mean? Kobe and John Jones living together. And, I think I've seen a picture, but it's been a long time. With the polo shirts.
Masvidal, I don't think Masvidal was involved in it at that time. I think what happened was, because Masvidal brings up the fact that he's helped Kobe so much, and he has. I mean, when Kobe didn't have a name and was a nobody, Masvidal was putting the word out to, like, Ariel and other people when Masvidal was already an established guy. I mean, I've been a Masvidal fan since his Shark Fight days, but, I mean, this was long before, you know, this head of steam he's gathered now and the stardom that he's gathered now. But there was also a thing that, like, apparently, because, you know, Kobe's from Oregon, and Kobe wrestled at Oregon State, and the knock on Masvidal back in the day was his wrestling and his wrestling defense. And apparently when they first met, Kobe would fly Masvidal out to Oregon to help him work on his wrestling. I don't know how true that is, but
well, even if you go back, and I know it's not documented, but I used to watch like after I interviewed him, I was so interested in what was going to become of Colby Covington, and I would tune into his live streams on Instagram, and every live stream he was always with Masvidal. So, you know, this goes back, you know, we've seen it a lot on The Ultimate Fighter, friends fighting, and it could happen, but I don't want to see that go down. I really don't.
No.
It doesn't excite me. It doesn't make sense unless you make something up. What does excite me, and this could be the last thing that we discuss here, Nick Diaz versus Masvidal. What are your thoughts on that? Because that could be the perfect thing to actually motivate Nick Diaz to come back and give 110%.
You're trying to get me yelled at by the Diaz fans, man.
I know. I'm not, but let's give our take here.
I almost want to see, at this point, I almost want to see Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz too, more than that. I think Masvidal's earned a title shot, to be honest with you. But
that was the first time we ever saw Nick Diaz show knockout power. That shot.
I know, it was crazy because he came in there. He was in there, and Joe Rogan was sitting in the commentary booth, and that was when Joe Rogan had a lot of hair, and he was like, Nick Diaz, this jiu-jitsu kid. Next thing you know, a left hook sits Robbie down. But yeah, I remember that fight like it was yesterday. I still remember Joe Rogan calling him a jiu-jitsu kid, and then he knocks Robbie Lawler out. But I was kind of rather see. I mean, Robbie Lawler, you've obviously seen the guys he's taken and the trajectory of his career. Like, I honestly don't even think he won that Cowboy fight, if we're being truthful. And I'm a big Robbie Lawler fan. And even when fights that he's won. I mean, Rory McDonald was up on probably 3 rounds to 1. I think he had to have that finish in the 5th round. I mean, Johnny Hendricks, there's a lot of talk that we saw how his career went after USADA. So if he was on something, I really don't care about the decision, but I thought Johnny Hendricks beat him. I thought Carlos Condit beat him for the title. So, I mean, it could be years since the last time Robbie Lawler actually legitimately won a fight, which is obviously the Rory fight, even though it was a come from behind win. But
oh man, that was an epic fight, though.
That would be a good fight to me. I mean, because I know we talked about ring rust earlier outside of this, and maybe the ring rust doesn't apply to the Diaz as much. But the thing is that if you look at Nick, he's obviously overweight. He's not overweight as far as a regular person.
Well, you got to remember, these guys do triathlons. Just because they're not in the octagon.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, it seemed to me, and from what I've heard, it seems like Nate Diaz has been the one that's been way more active in the gym. Nate's been in California away from his brother, raising his kid and going to the gym every day. I've heard differently about Nick. I've heard that Nick has been more like in Vegas and in the nightclub scene more than back home training with the scrap pack.
I actually know a little bit more about what Nick...
You can know differently. I mean, you might know differently.
I was supposed to move in with... If you guys know who Logan Paul and Jake Paul are, and you saw the viral video, the slap that changed my life, and if you guys have been listening to the Pure EVil MMA Podcast for a while, you've heard Slap for Cash here on the program. I was actually supposed to move in with Slap for Cash, and Donnie, I spoke with you about this.
Yeah.
Him and Nick are best friends, and I was supposed to move out there with them, and I've heard a lot about what's going on in Nick's life. And if you listen to this recent interview that I did with Ariel, he kind of gives you that insight of he's kind of detached himself from mixed martial arts in the fight world. And we've known this for a long time, that the Diaz brothers, they don't really enjoy fighting. But what excites me is this is something that actually motivates Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, I think the context of that interview could have been, because the thing is, I'm not going to lie, I left that interview feeling pretty uncomfortable, feeling kind of sad, feeling kind of sad for Nick. But at the same time, like, I mean, you might know more, but the context of the interview might have been kind of taken out of, it might have been taken out of context to a certain extent, because the thing is we saw it, and then, 2 weeks, the fight was on that Saturday, November 2nd, and I think it aired that Monday, November, it was a couple weeks later, but apparently...
It was like a week and a half later,
Yeah, so it was almost...
On that Wednesday,
yeah, exactly.
I think.
So it was a while back, yeah. So, but the thing was, is that I think that if you listen to it, obviously it was a couple weeks later or whatever, or maybe 10 days later.
It was, yeah, I think it was exactly 10 days.
But the fight, his brother took a hellacious beating, and it was still fresh in his memory. So it's obviously the interview was right after, not just a couple days after the fight. Because I remember Ariel asked him how he's doing. He's like,
not good. My little brother just got kicked in the face.
Got kicked in the head. Exactly. He just got kicked in the face. But the thing is that a lot of people were saying, had told me that he had been out in the nightclub that night. And, and everyone, I mean, we're all adults, and we can go to the nightclub, go to the bar, and have a few drinks. But apparently Ariel really wanted to interview him. And so that night, I think he had spent some time in the nightclub, and they did that interview really late at night. So maybe he was just a little buzzed, or a little drunk.
I got to give Ariel a lot of credit. If that's true, if that's true, I got to give Ariel a lot of credit, because I know that he goes the extra mile to get some interviews. And if you've been a journalist even for 6 months, a year, that could be very hard to do. Like, sometimes I'll plan an interview with a fighter. They don't show up at 3 o'clock. They hit me up at 9 o'clock and message me, and I'm like, I don't know, let's reschedule it. Ariel, though, that's why he is where he's at, is because of shit like that. The Diaz brothers are known to...
That's just what I've heard. That's just what I've heard, is that he had been kind of, because people were really concerned for him. I mean, the way he was slurring his words. If you look at the interviews from years past, don't get me wrong, like the interview, he did an interview backstage with Ariel.
Where's your brother?
Not long before the BJ Penn fight. And if you look at that interview, he was a lot more reserved. And the thing is, people also will say that he was talking a lot, kind of like I do. He was talking a lot with his new interview. Like Ariel would say something, and then he would just go rambling for a long time and just start talking about a bunch of crazy things. A lot of people say, well, people who suffer with anxiety and have a hard time being in front of camera,
Or
they don't want to face hard questions, so they ramble a lot.
Or
that could have been what he was doing.
Or it's 2020 and marijuana is legal in most states and more accepted and more understood, and you also get more entertainment out of it as well. So the people that are complaining are also the ones that were entertained enough to write something about the rambling, which they're probably smoking a blunt at home, which caused them to ramble in a blog as well. While we're here doing a podcast at 4:20 in the morning, a matter of fact. Happy 4:20 a.m. Yeah. But you know what, Donny?
I wasn't being harsh towards him. It was more of a concern to a certain extent. But once I heard the context that there was a good chance that it was a late night interview and he might have been having some drinks.
That's the Nick Diaz we want to see, though. We don't want to see Nick Diaz waking up, getting coffee and groggy. We want to see Nick Diaz after the club. You know what I mean? Like, come on. You people that are complaining are happy to complain. Come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, me, I was more, like, concerned at first, but
expand on that. Expand on that, Donny. Expand on that. Why were you concerned?
Well, I mean, to me, it's just, I don't know. Like, when I first saw it, like, maybe it was just not seeing Nick in the public eye for so long, and just, I don't know. It just, I don't know. I don't know. He just didn't seem well to me. I'm just being honest. Like, it seemed more than just weed. But I don't know. He just didn't.
When you say that, do you mean like CTE? Is that what you're leaning towards?
What's that?
Are you leaning towards CTE or something like that, like we see with Tito? Or
well, some people brought that up, and I wasn't trying to like go down too far down.
Imagine CTE while you're stoned too. Like that's.
Oh man,
something
and I didn't want to go too far down that road. Like some people were going really extreme with it, like to that level.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to go that far with it. I was just a little concerned when I first saw it.
Could you imagine trying to evaluate that, like CTE while somebody's stoned? Like, yeah, that's some. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing to laugh about, but just like that is some sort of insanity right there. Like,
yeah, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, I was just concerned when I first got, but maybe it's just not seeing Nick in the public eye for a long time, and I don't know. I just didn't think he looked well physically, to be honest with you. But
well, to be fair, Donny, to be fair to a lot of the listeners right now that may be at the gym listening to this, or on their way to work, or on the train right now, they're all going, enough about the Nick Diaz return. We've been waiting for this since after the beginning of 2015 or 2016 when he fought Anderson Silva. It's been too hella long to keep getting excited about this and then it not coming into play.
Yeah, like some people are really excited, and I'm kind of on the other side where it's like, oh, actually, excuse me. There's some people who are really excited, some people who don't want to see. I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm like, I'm not going to get excited about anything until about agreement is signed. Because we do know, like, people can talk shit about Conor, people can talk shit about Nick Diaz, but once they do sign, or Nick Diaz, once they do sign, they've always stepped in. They've never pulled out of a fight. They've always, no matter what they have going on outside of the octagon, they've always, when they've signed on the dotted line, they've always showed up, except for when Poirier pulled out versus Diaz. I mean, all these fights have come to fruition, so, I mean, I'm not going to get excited about something until but it is kind of odd and awkward, to be honest with you, because Nate Diaz wants that rematch too, but we know that he would step aside for his brother. We know that for a fact.
It's going to happen. We know that Diaz-Conor trilogy is going to happen at some point. It's
of course, that's like that. To me, that's been like
multi-million-dollar fight.
I'm talking about Nate Diaz versus Masvidal. Like, it's kind of a weird situation because we know that Nate Diaz would take a back seat to his big brother Nick to have that fight with Masvidal. But we also know that Nate was talking about wanting that rematch as well. Like, he talks that delusional shit. Like, he posts a picture of Masvidal on top of him beating his ass, and he says, this is the moment in the fight where he wanted to quit or he wanted out or something, that when Masvidal wanted out. Like, this was the look in his eye where I knew he wanted out of the fight. And I guess that could be the delusional thinking that I'm used to.
Well, not delusional because of the way the fight ended. It's not like it ended in the middle of a round. It ended because of the doctor stoppage in between rounds.
Yeah.
So
well,
it would make.
When have the Diaz's ever lost a fight that he actually lost? Never. like the famous, not the famous, but you know, like the important line that most people use is the Diaz's didn't lose; they ran out of time. Like everyone says that, like it's a Diaz fan. He didn't lose the fight; he ran out of time.
Well, Nate's been finished one time before, but yeah.
I know. By Josh Thompson and his brother doing the towel, but the referee didn't even see the towel getting thrown, and his back was turned to Nick Diaz throwing the towel. And see, that was another thing that we were talking about earlier, as far as like the show and win rate. I was trying to tie that in with like when I told you about the coach allowing the fighter to take a beating. The coach, the people that have the power to stop this fight, to stop the fight, and to stop their fighter from taking this hellacious beating. Of course, the fighter in his mind thinks he can come back and win, and then if the coach or someone throws in the towel, then it has financial implications towards the team. He's only getting half his pay. He could feel like he's robbing his fighter of a chance at the other half of his paycheck.
And we've seen fighters come back. We've seen look at.
We have.
Look at the damage. What's his name? In the featherweight division.
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell is his name?
Darren Elkins, man.
Darren Elkins.
Darren Elkins.
Yeah, the damage.
Yeah. Trust me, as soon as I want to talk about somebody, I can't remember their damn name.
Well, that's because we have about 500 fighters in our head that are active, and another 500 that are retired that we always got to remember and keep on deck.
Yeah, we're also going acapella here. I'm literally.
Well, here's the last thing, Donnie. Last thing, and then we'll close this out. We'll spend 3 minutes on this subject. Conor McGregor versus Cowboy. Does it get done by? Is it going to be the first card of January 2020, like we saw with Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit, which was an epic fight that went down in history? Is that going to be the first card of 2020, like Conor's aiming for? I'm guessing.
So. I mean, I don't think so. I hope so, but I hope we see it. But I mean, honestly, everyone knows that I'd rather see Conor versus Justin Gaethje. But
oh my God! But is that a smart fight for him to return to? I mean, Cowboy. That's not really a smart fight for him to return to either.
I mean, we've seen Cowboy have good entries, like really good entries to the double leg. I know that Conor has better takedown defense than I give him credit for it. I'll admit it. He does.
Well, he went to the fourth round with Habib. People don't even give him credit for that.
Yeah, I know. At this point, you measure how good Khabib is versus how long someone can survive with him, not whether he wins or not. But yeah. So the thing is that I mean, I don't know. Conor's just cluttering the rankings up, and the thing is like Justin Gaethje's gonna have a long ass wait. I mean, maybe Justin Gaethje's best move is to fight Dustin Poirier at this point. And Dustin Poirier is ranked one spot above him. Dustin Poirier has a win over him. Maybe that makes sense for Justin, even though Justin's coming off of 3 straight first-round knockouts, and Dustin did lose, but he lost to the champion. So maybe that could be the next fight for Justin. For Justin. But I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to happen in January. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the true legalities of what's really going on in Ireland. I really don't know what's going on. I mean,
that's another thing to talk about.
All we have is whispers and things like that. And I just don't know if it's good business for the UFC. They don't need Conor like they did when they were dependent on pay-per-views.
Exactly.
They're not dependent on pay-per-views anymore.
They don't.
They're getting, for the next 6+ years, they're getting more guaranteed money from ESPN than they've ever gotten ever. And they don't have to split the revenue with all these cable companies and with all these satellite companies. So they don't need Conor as much as they do.
You don't need Ronda. You don't need Conor. Yeah. You still got John Jones in there. You got Israel coming up. Yeah. You got a lot of exciting fighters coming up through the ranks right now. So
so we just have to. I mean, the thing is that like at this point we're kind of getting used to every other couple weeks something else about Conor popping up, and we just don't personally know if it's the smartest thing for the UFC to be in the Conor business at this moment because we don't know what's going to pop up next. And so it's just hard to say. I mean, obviously, if these accusations are true, the cage is where I want to see him, but I'm not sure it's the UFC octagon. But yeah, I just don't know, man. I mean, if you listen to Audiatar, that's the fight that from Paradigm. That's the fight they want to make, and that's the fight that makes sense for them from a business standpoint, from a ranking standpoint, and from a sport standpoint. I would think the Justin Gaethje fight, since they're ranked 3 and 4 respectively. But obviously, Cowboy shot his shot, which is pretty cool with the Budweiser can next to the
yeah.
12 bottle.
I wrote an article about that as well. You guys can check out Pure EVil MMA.com.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Really quick, Donnie. I know I keep saying last thing to discuss, but you got to answer this to the people on Twitter. Why don't you think Nate Diaz belongs in the Hall of Fame? Because I got to agree with you. There has to be restrictions of what qualifies somebody to be a Hall of Famer. You can't just be a fan favorite. You can have submission records. You can be second highest or third highest for fight of the night bonuses. But what really requires a Hall of Famer? Because we've seen a lot of fighters that are legends that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So what would qualify somebody?
The thing is, it's so subjective. With the UFC, it is so subjective. And the thing is that I guess I just grew up with other sports. I obviously in my teens, that's why I became a big MMA fan. But even as a young kid, I still remember 1996 watching. 95, my Atlanta Braves in baseball, they won the World Series. In '96, we played the Yankees, and we were up 2-0, and they ended up coming back on us. And I was 9 years old, and I still remember crying for days.
What was that, Mets? Was that the Subway Series?
No, it was in '96. It was the New York Yankees versus my Atlanta Braves, and we were up. The Braves were up 2-0 on the Yankees, and the Yankees came back. And then Game 3, we were up 3-0, and the Yankees came back and won that game. Ended up beating us in 6 games. They won 4 games in a row to win the World Series. But I just grew up with sports, football and baseball, where you see guys that are so deserving to get in the Hall of Fame, and they have great career stats. Like a 300 hitter in baseball is something to be celebrated. It's very good.
Oh yeah.
It's an extremely hard feat to reach. Being a 300 hitter, lifetime or even for a season. For a lifetime for sure. And I've seen guys that are just extremely special. I'm not saying that Nate Diaz isn't special. I know that he is he's more, to me, I look at him as a cult icon.
He's also won the Ultimate Fighter. There are things.
He does have good. I'm not saying that but the thing is that I just look at it what is his UFC record? 13.
It's not
12,
good.
14,
It's like a
12.
500 record.
It's not very good. He's lost to the same exact style of fighter every time. Wrestlers and guys that with really good leg kicks and wrestlers. He's lost to that style. He hasn't evolved. I would actually say, if you watch his fight with Michael Johnson, he was just boxing him up from range. Now he's more of a guy that's in the clinch. His career isn't over with yet. Let's see how it unfolds. But the thing is that I'm just used to the Hall of Fame meaning something. Guys who I would say that Nate Diaz belongs in the Hall of Fame, but in the fight, that section where they've inducted fights like Diego Sanchez versus Clay Guida, that's in the fight wing of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, a specialty wing. Yeah. Like
Conor versus Nate Chu, for example.
Standouts or runners up.
That was a historic. Yeah, that was a historic fight. Conor versus Nate Chu was a historic fight.
Nobody can deny this, Donnie. Nobody can deny that.
Yeah.
That fight, him winning that fight, boosted him tenfold.
Yeah, but the first fight was. But the thing is, I'm not going to speak about Cowboy Cerrone, whether he should get in or not, because I'm extremely biased. But
why do you say that? Because Cowboy also chokes when it comes to those big fights.
Because the thing is, there's people who, even though I'm a Diaz fan, I'm a hardcore Cowboy fan, and I have been. He was probably
he deserves a badass Hall of Fame. Badass Hall of Fame.
Gerald the Hurricane Harris. He is my favorite fighter. of all time. I grew up watching J.O. with my father, so he's my favorite fighter. But the thing is that, like, I also grew up a Cowboy fan. So I'm going to exclude I disqualify myself from talking Cowboy into the Hall of Fame. But what's the biggest knock on Cowboy? He can't win the big fight.
He chokes on the
loses
big
fight.
Yeah.
Diaz does the same exact thing. I mean, Diaz, yes, he beat Cowboy, or he beat Conor, he beat Cowboy too, but he beat Conor the first fight. But, I mean, let's just be honest. Conor was coming up 2 weight classes at the time, basically. And he had just,
I believe Nate never had a main event fight before that Conor. I think he fought for. Didn't he fight? He fought RDA. I know he got beat the fuck up by RDA. Was that a main event? That was
Yeah. He fought fucking somebody, bro. Anyway,
okay.
The thing is that I know he's never won. I know he's never finished anyone in the 4th round. He's never finished anyone in the 5th round. He's never won a 5-round, like a fight that's gone the distance, except for. I mean, he's never won a fight that's gone the distance.
That's the argument, Donnie. Donnie, that's the argument a lot of people are throwing out there. Even my co-host James was saying, yeah, Nate's known for, warming up in the 4th and 5th and turning on. But when he was saying that, I was like...
But that's not even true. Like, people were saying, like, if you were to give him an opportunity...
I agree with you.
He turns it up in the 4th and 5th round.
There's nothing to back that up.
Masvidal's never been finished in the UFC in 20 fights now, or I think 19 fights. He's never been finished in the UFC. You have a Diaz, which many people won't agree, but he was compromised. Imagine getting your intestines smashed in for 3 rounds. I mean, he may not have looked like it, but he was compromised. I mean, you're going to tell me that a guy who's never had finished past the 3rd round is, but that's not. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. My point is that he's never won a 5-round fight like that's gone 5 rounds. Conor McGregor was going up 2 weight classes. And let's just be honest.
He was challenging himself.
Most of these Diaz fans that are arguing with me, they became Diaz fans after he beat Conor.
The McGregor fight or the Michael Johnson fight. Yeah.
He didn't even know who he was before he said, I used to feel like all that shit, like surprise,
didn't even watch Ultimate Fighter Season 5. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
They couldn't even, I'm not.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. But the thing is that
a lot of those people can't even list 5 fighters that were on Season 5 of The Ultimate Fighter with Nate Diaz. That's the craziest part.
It's just ridiculous, man. I know, it's ridiculous. But the thing is like, I mean, and they can't, I do believe that Nate Diaz belongs in the Hall of Fame as in the fight wing. Like,
in a fight wing. I agree with that.
The second fight with Conor. I mean, if you want to, the thing is...
Nate Diaz is not a legend. He's not a legend.
He's not a legend. And the thing is, I've heard people say that he changed the perception of marijuana. And, no, I think his brother did that by getting suspended for 5 years and then getting reduced. And,
his brother was a big part of his career, let's be honest.
I mean, Nick Diaz's fight over in Pride.
It's the Diaz brothers.
He got changed to a no contest because he had weed in the system. Like, Pride would test you for weed.
But, Donnie, that's also remarkable in itself, though, that these 2 brothers made it to the UFC. That is remarkable.
He had to be high in the octagon.
If they go to the Hall of Fame, they need to go together as the Diaz brothers, not just Nate. It needs to be the Diaz brothers.
The thing is, Nick Diaz does have some really good accomplishments. If you include his Zuffa run, because Strikeforce was obviously came under the Zuffa banner, and he has a world title. But Nate Diaz has never won. Besides the first Conor fight, which obviously Conor gassed out, we all saw how that unfolded. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Nate Diaz was on 30,000 before the Conor McGregor fight. Yeah, then all of a sudden he fights Conor McGregor. Yeah. Conor McGregor picked him. Like he won the Conor McGregor sweepstakes. I mean, let's just be honest.
Red panty night. He won red panty night.
If it wasn't for RDA getting hurt, and then all of a sudden,
man, I'll never forget. I was on the toilet. And my ex-girlfriend screamed, "Fights off!" I went, "What do you mean fights off? Fights off!" Oh, what do you mean?
I'm a fan, so I consider myself being objective and unbiased when I give this, when I present this, because I am a fan, but I'm not delusional fan. Like, I'm not like that. So
Yeah.
the thing is that
No, I know what you mean.
I try to call something how I see it, and to me, this is a subjective argument, but I do try to put facts behind the argument. There are facts that do support it. But
and that's important.
The thing is that...
Yeah.
And the thing, it's just the way his career is unfolded. Like, the thing is, to me, it would be like... I don't know, like a baseball player may have changed.
I think we summed it up perfectly. It needs to be the Diaz brothers in the Hall of Fame, or in a wing where it's Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor in his prime.
Yeah, there you go. And that's why I think that like you could put Nate Diaz in the Hall of Fame with Conor McGregor with that fight, the second fight, because it was an epic fight. The second fight was epic, even though he lost it. It was an epic fight.
Still need to see that third one, though. That third one needs to happen. Yeah, I'm only staying alive for that. I only got sober so I can make sure I'm alive and didn't overdose before that third, trilogy fight went down. I've been waiting 3 years. I've been sitting here sober for 3 years waiting for that trilogy.
Wow. You're winning your life, man.
The McGregor-Diaz rehab. You know what I mean?
Who knows when that... I mean, maybe we'll have Masvidal versus Nick and Conor versus Nate on the same card.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah, oh man, that would be crazy. Well, we don't know what 2020 is going to bring, but you know what we do here on PureEvilMMA.com. Year after year, we give you guys the end of the year recap, which highlights and we relive all of the best fights from this year between the best submissions, biggest come-ups, biggest comebacks, female fighter of the year, best submission of the year. So we're going to have you guys vote on that at PureEvilMMA.com come the second week of December. That's coming up. It is now November 24th, which Thanksgiving is coming up. And me and Donny are going to be discussing some MMA conspiracies in the next week. Donny, I want to thank you so much for joining me once again. I know it's almost 5 in the morning right now, but this is what I live for, man. This is what makes me feel alive. This is what has saved my life. And this is why I brought you onto this platform. It's because I feel like me and you share that same excitement for something. And I'll tell you something, guys. Donny waited an hour and a half for me to get the show running with all the technical difficulties. And for a second there, I thought you weren't going to pick up when I was starting this live stream. But we got it going.
No, man.
We got it going, and we discussed a lot.
I know. I know. I'm not a lot, but I just love this fucking sport, man. I can talk about it all day, every day, and I pretty much do.
Well, you know what, man? It was, even though without UFC tonight, we had boxing. We had Bellator go down. So we want to know what you guys thought about the boxing fight that went down tonight. We want to know what you guys thought about Bellator being on tape delay. Let us know at PureEvilMMA.com or on Instagram and Twitter at PureEvilMMA_, or on Donny's Twitter at DRockett. That's DRockett 6969, because Donny's apparently a perv, and let him know. But Donny, what is other platforms? You have Instagram as well. Why don't you give a shout out to the last article? Oh, before we end this, quick update on Aniah Blanchard. Where did we leave off on this? Just to give everybody a quick update.
Yeah, still unfortunately looking for Aniah. The suspect in the case, he had his preliminary hearing on November 20th. He's being held without bond. His lawyer is trying to argue that he should get bond because the jail that he's in, apparently they want to kill him in there, and that if he did get bond, he would immediately go back to jail in Montgomery, where he's from, and because he obviously was already out on bond before this case for a kidnapping and attempted murder case. Why he got bond in this case, I mean, we'll hate life in this situation. We'll hate it forever. But how he got bond, I don't know. But his lawyer is arguing that, like many of the cases...
he's arguing that he's in danger? He's in danger? The man that kidnapped? Is in danger.
Exactly.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and then we also had the witness. The witness didn't testify. The witness is still being unnamed, but the witness who saw the suspect, whatever the hell his name is, Ibrahim, who saw him kidnap and stuff Aniah into her own vehicle, that witness, pretty much the prosecution spoke for him and quoted him And why that witness didn't come forward immediately or intervene, I have no idea.
Those first couple hours are so important. It's so fucked up that didn't happen. And this case is so confusing.
Yeah, apparently the witness was walked up to the store. He was staying at a hotel right down the street. He witnessed Aniah being stuffed into her own vehicle, and then when he got back to the hotel, he told his girlfriend, or a female companion, I'll say, that's how it was worded, a female companion, he told her about what he saw, and she told him, so we don't know what these people are involved with. So it could be something that they didn't want to be brought to light. We don't know. But she told him to keep his mouth shut, that it's none of their business.
Wow.
And apparently he did keep his mouth shut, obviously, for a couple weeks, and then he came out.
When he found out there was $100,000 for any information leading to the arrest. Yeah.
There you go. And so that's when we got the footage of Aniah and the man, the same person that's arrested right now, Ibrahim Izzy. We saw him on footage, walking behind her, and because that one still footage, or one still image of Aniah, you kind of saw his foot in the background. We did see him on camera, and then
one of our viewers actually pointed that out the day before it was announced.
They mentioned it, but exactly. That was a good eye by them. They mentioned it before we even found out that they
shout out to the girl who said that on our website as well. I forgot her name, definitely. But she deserves a shout out because that was good looks.
For sure. Yeah, because she pointed it out before we found out that Ibrahim.
I'll be honest, Donny, I didn't notice the feet in the background either.
Me either. I didn't either. I guess sometimes, you can just be so focused on what you're looking at, and what I was looking at was her, and just thinking about what she went through and what she's gone through. I mean, it's just extremely sad. And then obviously Walt and his wife went on Dr. Phil, and they spoke into the camera as if they were talking to Aniah. You could see the emotion in both of them, and it crushed me, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was sitting in my living room like an idiot crying. But it's not good, man. But yeah, he was arrested, I think, I forget exactly what day when he was arrested. He was found in Florida, a couple miles from the Alabama border. It was actually unprecedented, to a certain extent. He went to court on a Sunday, and they ended up putting a gag order in place where nobody can talk about the case outside of the courtroom and things like that.
Wasn't it his girlfriend or baby mama that really threw him under the bus? When she saw his photo come out, she was like, "My baby daddy didn't do." You were an idiot.
And she went on Facebook saying that shit, saying that he wouldn't do this or something. And she did throw him under the bus. I mean, but anyways, so they had the court hearing on a Sunday. I guess that was more of an arraignment.
When is Donny? Do you know the next court date?
There was nothing listed. Like, I think
they're doing a DNA test, right? That's where it left off.
Here's the two things.
Because you did an article at Pure EVil MMA.com for people who want to go check that out.
And I know pretty much. I know this case pretty much backwards and forwards. I mean, I'm talking without anything in front of me right now. I'm on the phone with you. I'm not even. But the thing is, on November 20th at 9 a.m., he had his preliminary hearing. And normally at a preliminary hearing, what happens is there's no defense in the case at all. What happens is the prosecutor has to go in front of the judge, and he has to submit the evidence, maybe not all of the evidence, but he has to submit enough evidence. And 99% of the time it's going to happen, but usually what happens is at a preliminary hearing, the prosecutor will submit the evidence, then the defense has a chance to, say it's a witness who is providing the crucial evidence.
Yeah.
Then the defense has a chance to come up there and question the witness and debunk what he's saying, or the defense does not have, they don't have to put on anything at all. They don't have to say anything. It's the prosecution's burden to submit enough evidence to where the lawyer, or excuse me,
innocent until proven guilty, right?
Yeah, so the judge will, by the evidence given from the prosecution, the judge will determine if there's enough evidence to go forward and to send the case to trial, to certify the charges. Now, the judge has certified the charges, but also we found out, not long after this case, happened, before he was even arrested, we found out that there was Aniah's DNA found, enough blood to, quote, determine that there could be a loss of life in this case, or a life-threatening injury sustained by Aniah. And so a lot of her blood was found in the passenger seat, in the passenger side of her own vehicle. And so the thing is that there was also DNA of an unknown person found. And so at trial, at the preliminary hearing, the prosecution argued that they wanted the suspect, Abraham, to submit to a DNA test. And that would be usually a swab in the mouth. And the judge ordered him to take that DNA test. And so we will find out if because right now,
there's no doubt it's him.
Of course it's him, but let's just be honest. We do have a shady-ass witness here, because, I mean,
if
this
he
witness
looks guilty,
came out,
smells guilty, acts guilty, has a history of being guilty, he's probably guilty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But here's another thing we have to consider. When I first brought this case with y'all, and this case, like when I first was talking about this case, when I first talked about it on Pure EVil MMA.com, one witness said they saw him leaving in his Lincoln, pulling out of the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, there was somebody else. He was in her car, and his car had someone.
Exactly. The sheriff, they've been talking about this, and the prosecution's been talking about this, that they see more charges coming, because obviously he had to drive her vehicle out of there. He stuck her in her own vehicle and was seen leaving in her vehicle. So there could
be more people involved.
But his vehicle was also seen leaving the parking lot. So there's a good chance that he obviously had help if both vehicles were exiting the parking lot at the same time.
And there's also a chance that she may still be alive, because he hasn't admitted.
I was getting right there. Aniah's family, Walt, and Miss Angela Harris, her mother, obviously.
But her blood was in the car.
Exactly. The hope that they're hanging on to is that he did have a culprit. There was another culprit. He did have help, and that maybe they're hanging on to her, keeping her against her will. I mean, I'm not going to submit anything other than hope.
And we still don't know how he got the black eye, either.
That's a good question, man. I don't know.
Hopefully the cops, but it would be even better if it was her.
Yeah, because when we saw him on camera in the gas station on October 23rd, before midnight, when she stopped at the gas station, apparently she would stop at that gas station a lot for chips and things like that in the middle of the night, like before she would head home.
She got a bag of Doritos. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she stopped and grabbed something to munch on. I know for a fact I saw someone saying that she left in the opposite direction, like she was going to meet someone. Her mother thinks that her family, they think that maybe someone set her up in this case. I don't know. Like, the thing is that, to me, I'm looking at it more.
And she messaged her roommate on Snapchat. Yeah.
Which we don't know
she was with a guy. It's so weird.
Yeah, exactly. Which we don't really know if that was really her. I mean, it's a good question.
Or him. Yeah.
Exactly. So we don't really know who that was.
Or how the damage. I think it's even weirder that the police don't know how the damage to her car.
And when they first found the vehicle, they said, and I quote, they said, there appears to be no
foul play.
No foul play involved. I'm like amateur hour. A couple of days later, you found enough blood in the car.
Well, it could be tactics. It could be tactics as well for the police.
It could have been, yeah. You just don't. I mean, maybe.
But here's the thing, Donnie. For everybody losing, here's the thing, Donnie. For everybody losing hope, and let's end it with this. For everybody losing hope, I want you to look up who J.C. Dugard is. J.C. Dugard. She was kidnapped for a few years. Her parents and officials thought that she was murdered, and they were never going to find her. The case went cold. Years later, she ended up being found, and it's a very sad story, but also a story that gives you hope. And I want you guys to look into that, because
I've actually heard of cases where a person has been kidnapped and held on to for so long that they have like a person. They have more of a. They end up developing. I know psychologists have psychologist friends and things like that. They develop like a personality disorder where they almost feel loyalty to their captor, and they will actually, like, over time.
It's called Munchausen syndrome. Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah. And so the thing is that they, there's been cases like that where you see people
they start feeling sympathy for the people who kidnapped them. They feel sympathy for the people who kidnapped them.
Honestly, I don't know why I even bring that up. All I'm saying is that we have seen cases where people have been held underground for years and years and years and years, and then later they look different. And so, I mean, hopefully that's the case, and hopefully she's found as soon as possible. That's the only thing I can hope for.
And the only reason we bring that up, I know it's very sensitive, but, you know, there are a lot of people out there that don't believe that, you know, she might still be alive, but I just want to bring it up that there are cases where people gave up all hope. You can't lose hope until a body is found. So just remember that. Keep up hope. Keep your eyes open, because there can still be clues going on. This case is ongoing. Just because we found a suspect, just because it could be or is the person that kidnapped her, we don't have a body. He hasn't admitted to anything. Keep your eyes open, guys.
He was acting on. And the thing is that we said this early on. We said, if you have any information, you know, about 911, to call them and let them know. I said that I guarantee, and it wasn't like I was going out on a limb. I said there's somebody out there who knows something. And obviously there was a witness who kept his damn mouth shut for far too long, who did know something extremely important. The thing is, this fucking idiot in jail is not talking. He will not open his mouth, and you're not going to get any information from him right now.
The fact that the lawyer is trying to say, oh, he's in danger in the jail. Because they want him back in Montgomery, because they're saying that if he is given bond in this case, that his bond in his previous case for kidnapping and attempted murder will be taken away. Like he'll lose his bond in the other case. We also don't want him to be killed in jail, though, because then we won't get any information.
No, but he's not going to be.
But we don't want him free again when he's been.
That's the reason they're arguing, because he's sitting in confinement right now, like a SHU type program, like we have in prison, like solitary confinement. And
but
so,
Donnie, you know damn well somebody like that, if they're freed again, they could go on a rampage, and it could get a lot worse.
I mean, this dude was already on bond for fucking kidnapping and attempted murder. And the thing is, what mistake did he make the last time he was caught?
Fool me once, shame on me. Or fool me once, shame on me. Yeah, however that goes. I sound like George Bush right now, but yeah.
No, but yeah, the thing is that he's already out on bond for doing something fucked up like this. And the major reason he got caught in the last case is because he left someone alive. And hopefully he did the same thing in this case, and she can be found. So, but the thing is that.
Hold on, repeat that one more time for our listeners. The only reason he got caught last time was because the person he kidnapped was found alive.
Found alive, exactly. And so hopefully that's the case this time too. I mean, we can hold out hope, but the thing is that this dude is obviously very dangerous.
That's
okay.
Heavy, yeah.
And the thing is, many of his charges, like he has so many charges in the past, and a lot of them he's gotten away with a good amount of times, and his lawyer is using that as a defense for him. But
this pisses me off so much, Donnie.
Hopefully, now that they're making him submit to a DNA test, okay, and they have found unknown DNA, if they can match that DNA to him, and even if they can't, maybe they can match that DNA to someone else that's in the database. Because I'm sorry, most people don't just wake up one day and decide to kidnap someone for their first crime ever.
Thank you.
And so a lot of people have their DNA in a database. If they can match this to someone that can corroborate that he was with them and put him at the scene, like with no beyond any reasonable doubt, or connect him to the case through that DNA, then maybe once the DNA comes back and it's a match to him, he will see that he has nowhere else to go, and he needs to start talking. He needs to help himself out, and the only way he's going to help himself out is to start talking, and hopefully that's what happens. But
Donnie, let me say this really quick before we end the show. This is why I have no problem with giving my fingerprint to my phone. This is why I have no problem doing the face identification on Snapchat, because or giving out my location. I mean, it goes both ways. But in the long run, if I got nothing to hide, it's going to help me.
For me to be able to use like Samsung Pay, or for me to be able to use like the Pay where like Google Pay, where you just like touch the phone onto the damn like on the, you know what I'm talking about, the new system?
Yeah,
like when
it
you
identifies where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only way I can use that, and I do use it, is if I have a fingerprint, like, to open my phone, or a fingerprint, or a code to open my phone. That's the only way, and it has to enable my location, all that shit. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like it, and there's certain,
But if
like
you,
the Patriot
only
Act
if you have
and
nothing to,
like that,
only if you have something to hide, then you don't like it.
Yeah.
If you got something to hide.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's end the show there, Donnie. It's 5 o'clock on Sunday, November 24th. I got to get a couple of hours of rest. I'm going to upload this immediately to iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, all that good stuff. And you guys can catch all the episodes at PureEvilMMA.com, along with all the latest MMA news and interviews. This was Donny Rockett, who is our newest member at the end of 2019 here. So, Donnie, where can people find you on social media? Really quick tags here before we sign off.
Yeah, both Twitter and Instagram at DRocket6969.
Oh, there you are, Grunt. Hold on, Donnie.
Yeah, man.
Donnie, before you go, quick heads up to all of our listeners, the last 2 articles that you wrote for the site, because they were very interesting for people to go check out at PureEvilMMA.com. But I just found my other rap, which I was worried that he got upstairs. But what were the last 2 articles that you wrote, other than Aniah's article?
What's that?
Other than Aniah's article, what were the other 2 articles that you wrote on the website?
The results for Brazil, results for the Russia card, post UFC 244 matchmaking. So yeah, a couple others that are up there. But post UFC 244 matchmaking results. The results for the Russia card, and then I've kept very busy on this Aniah Blanchard story, obviously.
And we also have a little bit of a break, but me and Donnie will be talking about some conspiracy theories. I found Grunt, guys. I was worrying about him for the last 25 minutes here, but you guys did.
I'm glad
see
you found
Puff.
it, man.
I found Grunt, but Puff, you guys saw here on the video stream. If you were listening here on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, or Spotify, jump over to YouTube, youtube.com/PureEvilMMA to check out the video cast. Or we do this live on Periscope. Go on Periscope at PureEvilMMA, and you will find the live streams and get notified as well every time we go live. Donnie, I want to thank you so much, man. We did a Joe Rogan podcast here. We got to 2 hours and 15 minutes here almost. So very impressive. But you know what, man? That means a lot, because it just shows how into it our listeners are. Because
yeah, man.
I'm not going to lie, man. We went trending 2 times in 2019 on iTunes, 20 out of 20 on iTunes for 2 episodes. I forget which ones. But I wake up every day excited to find out the latest MMA news, the latest MMA drama going on. Even the trolls out there, they make me feel alive. You know, even when I get upset, even though I get upset, and sometimes I'm like, oh, man, why am I even responding to these guys? It's
people
still
say the
something.
Same thing to me too. People say it to me all the time. They're like, why are you arguing with people? And the thing is, I try to keep it polite, and I try my best to keep it, you know, as civil as I can, but I also try to respond to everyone I can, too. I mean, I don't know everything in life, and even in my arguments, I learn things I don't know, too.
Well, that's the thing, Donnie, and that's what I like about the brand Pure Evil. It started as me giving my pure reaction. My name's Eddie Vilecco, E for evil, E for E in evil, Vilecco, Vilevil.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole plot was, Pure Evil was me giving my pure reaction. And I wanted everybody to have their honest opinion about something. Everybody has an opinion, and I like to debate. But I hate when people just get nasty and just, you know, a lot of these people, they don't have facts to back their shit up. And that's what I love about you. When somebody says something, you're like, oh, well, you think that Diaz comes back in the 4th and 5th round in his fights? Well, check this out. That's never happened before. Like, I love stuff like that.
I mean, obviously, it's MMA. Anything can happen, but don't try to present it as fact, as something that history shows has happened, because it hasn't.
I just like people that keep an open mind, that can maturely talk and have an educational a session about what they're talking about. Because I could be wrong about a lot of things, and I like hearing from other people their opinions, because it could change how I think or how I stand on a subject, you know?
People on Twitter I consider friends. I met them through arguing with them at first, and then we just came to a conclusion that, either I'm right or they're right. It doesn't matter. Let's just keep it civil. And
it gets annoying, though. Don't lie, Donny. Don't lie. Sometimes it gets annoying.
A lot of people can hide. I don't hide behind anything. I'm up there under my real name, under my real picture.
I'm glad that you said that.
I'm presenting myself. I mean, sometimes even vulnerable.
You're not an egghead. You're not an egghead. You don't have no profile picture and some bullshit name. Yeah.
And the thing is, I chat with a lot of people who do, but some people, they have multiple accounts and they do they do this. They can say whatever they want and feel however they want. And maybe I can too, but I just try my best to have, even in arguments, I try to be as civil as I can. Sometimes I let things get the best of me, but
you know what I like, Donny? I like that you argue with the eggheads, and you also argue with the verified fighters, like Paddy.
Oh yeah, I'll do both. Yeah, I'll do both. I'll do both if I think I have a fact that supports it. I mean,
you give everybody the fair fight. Yeah.
I do my best. I mean, but the thing is, sometimes I'm left at the very end, so I was wrong. I apologize.
Oh, last but not least, guys, we got 2 new writers here at PureEvilMMA.com joining our staff, along with Donny, Danielle, and Mike Lynch. We got Quan and who's the other guy? Sean Porter, right? Is that his name? Yep. Sean Porter. Yeah. So look out for their new articles. I think Quan just did an article on Ben Askren's career. And you know what? I was speaking with James McSweeney, my co-host for Gloves Off, also at PureEvilMMA.com, and he was kind of bashing Ben Askren's career, saying that he didn't face the best of the best when he was over at 1FC. So that podcast will be up shortly at PureEvilMMA.com. That does it for this episode of Pure Evil MMA Podcast. I'm Evil Eddie, owner of Pure Evil MMA. Remember, white knuckles to the end. Without evil, there's no purity. And remember, that's Donny Rockett. Make sure to go give him a follow. YouTube.com/PureEvilMMA. White knuckles to the end. Behave yourselves. We're out.